That's right. Thank you, Dom and Vishal. Thank you so much for talking to us on the heels of Facebook's big announcements. You know, Zuckerberg just unveiled that new name of Meta, and on Monday, the company announced that it was going to be spending $10 billion on metaverse costs just this year alone. My first question for you is, when you think these investments in the metaverse are going to start paying off, at what point do you see Facebook Reality Labs and your work on the metaverse starting to yield revenue and profits?
Well, first, thanks for having me. And it's important to note these are very much long-term investments. We made it clear on the call this week that over the next couple of years, we're making some fundamental investments on the hardware side and the software side. And the metaverse vision for us is a 5, 10, 15-year journey. So we expect while these investments are important and why we're calling them out, given they're significant, the return from a business perspective may still be a few years out, but it's important for us to get started on them now.
So a few years out, I mean, Zuckerberg said that you're going to be selling the VR headsets at cost. Are we talking about just in continuing to invest tens of billions of dollars a year for the next 10 years? Or is there a path to profitability in the next decade? Can you give us a sense of that timeline?
Well, it's hard to put a specific timeline against that. I think it's important to note, one of the reasons we felt it important to call this out from a segment perspective is, for some time now, Facebook, now Meta, has been more than just the Facebook app. And people were confused about that name because the company name and the product name was the same. We've had, obviously, the family of apps for quite some time, and the ability to invest on the hardware side, whether it's in VR, AR, future platforms, is important to call out. So these are long-term investments, but our core business continues to be very important. I used to work on Instagram, and that's a very important investment that continues for us as a company while we build the platform for the future.
Yeah, and I want to get to your background and what you're bringing from that later. But first, how would you explain what the business model of this metaverse is going to be?
We teased a little bit of this at Connect today, and in some ways it's still very early to know exactly how it might evolve. Right now, how we're thinking about it is that in the next decade, we hope 1 billion people will be able to use the metaverse and transact with hundreds of billions of dollars worth of commerce, digital commerce. And there's an opportunity certainly there from a commerce perspective, but also for advertising. As creators build new worlds, businesses create objects, digital objects and services, the opportunity to make those known to others is something that will be powerful in and of itself. But it's early, and we're starting on this early. We're having the conversation broadly. And it's important to note that Facebook, now Meta, will not be building the metaverse alone. We are going to be partnering with other companies, talking about it more broadly with the ecosystem, because it's too big for any one company to build alone.
Vishal, it's Dom here. I wonder, you mentioned this notion that this meta transformation, the metaverse transformation of Facebook could be very much, it is very much in the initial stages. This could be a 5, 10, 15-year transition. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what you think the employee base, both yourself and your peers and colleagues at Facebook/Meta, feel about the direction of this company in the coming months and years, given some of the things that have been happening in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere with regulators and politicians. Is there a sense right now that Meta is going to change over the next 5 to 10 years into a company that's far and distant away from what we know as Facebook today?
Well, I think it's important to note that we are very much taking our heritage with us into this future. The simple things like the logo has the Facebook blue in it. The font is the same as Facebook. We aren't running from our past. We're heading towards our future. And the Facebook product, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, remain incredibly important parts of our overall offering to consumers. We are just more than a social media company. We have been for some time, given our investments in hardware and in things like the metaverse. We are just making that much more explicit now. So we're taking the lessons we've learned certainly into the future, building this more in the open, talking about it now. But it's important to note we're not running from it. We are excited about this future we're building together.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.